I was floating above my own body, staring down at myself, when a voice whispered, "Let's go." Suddenly, I found myself amidst a journey beyond comprehension. Welcome to Fascinating Stories. It's Mike here, taking you on another surreal journey. Ever wonder what lies beyond our earthly existence? Dive into this vivid narrative of an individual unexpectedly leaving their physical form, venturing into realms unfathomable to our mortal minds, floating above, ascending through viaducts, and being enveloped by calming clouds. The experience of this otherworldly trip unfolds with encounters with ethereal beings, lost family members, and heartwarming reunions. As the narrator grapples with understanding their surroundings, the sensation of peace, and the crossroads between staying in this ethereal realm or returning back to the earthly body, we're led to question the very essence of life, afterlife, and the connections we share beyond the tangible. Stay with me as we navigate this astonishing odyssey between two realities, seeking answers to age-old questions about existence and beyond.
I was resting on my bed when I noticed myself peering down on myself from the upper portion of the roof. I was floating above my body and didn't realize it at first. Who was I observing? I wondered at first. As a result, my body looked odd. Then I heard someone say, "Let's go." I sensed the presence of a being nearby. Despite not heading there, we started ascending as if through a viaduct. We were enveloped by humid clouds, which felt nice. I noticed other viaducts where other beings ascended. I had the impression that my earthly life was coming to an end, and I asked myself, is this what is about to happen? It may be, the voice replied. I had emerged from my body, steadily ascending and drifting towards a location where I noticed a subtle blue haze, followed by an oppressive gloom. I proceeded to rise till I found myself in a rectangular room. Suddenly, I found myself next to two entities that I could only see with my lateral vision. They had wide, expressive eyes. "Is this a final act?" I inquired. And they replied, "Perhaps." Then I wondered, am I dreaming? No, you are not hallucinating. Take a look at your family right now. At a certain distance, as if posing for a photograph, a big number of people from my family, some recognizable and others not, but strikingly similar. They were given to me as unidentified ancestors and children who had perished while they were young. They gave me a friendly smile. They appeared appreciative and pleased to meet me. I also felt goodwill and delight at recognizing most of them and recalling the most positive recollections of them. I attempted to approach them, but they instructed me not to. I had such a strong sense of warmth that I didn't want to go. I felt a tinge of nostalgia because I couldn't hug them, especially my father and grandparents. They gradually went away and a wide range of tapering apertures formed. As they extended through their lower and extremely deep angle, forms of people sprung forth, and I could see their little heads all the time. Very low at the start of their rise, suddenly, I saw what appeared to be the image of my kind mother, who was also climbing on one of the channels. When I questioned if it was her allotted time, they answered, "Quite likely, but not any time soon." Many people arrived, and we exchanged glances. We recognized the physical qualities of our family, albeit I couldn't recognize them clearly or precisely. Others had become completely unrecognizable. It would be more than 10 years before I recognized them as relatives or acquaintances of my brother, Carlos Alberto. I saw other entities and heard them remark that I was in a state of great transformation. They told me I could go on, but they didn't know whether if I went to the end with them, I'd never be able to return. I wanted to make sure there was no danger in going any further. They stated that there was a high possibility of never being able to return from here on out. Nonetheless, I chose to continue, and I entered a creamy area that seemed like a large canal. As I climbed, a magnificent and explosive light of crimson and orange tones burst from the bottom. My entire existence was evaluated in a monologue that began. I observed all of my previously revealed acts. I wondered if I could have done it if they had been different, but I was reminded that it is pointless to criticize or accept them as synthesizable. Despite this, my curiosity drove me to investigate the possibilities and chances of these happenings and incidents. I then had fun reconciling my playful feelings with the remorse and retaliation that I should have felt. However, I was not dissatisfied with any of them. I realized that the techniques and resources I had at my disposal to spend the relics of this previous life were adequate and in accordance with my conscience. I felt a bluish stupor all around me. Then I saw figures of friendly beings that greeted me and agreed with my thoughts. I discovered that incidents that appear significant during the course of one's life are not so significant. I then identified with my ego, the ego. I decided that there were some things within the transcendental that I would have liked to study in terms of their function at the time of the deed. But they said that nothing was so significant and that everything had been a part of my growth. Nonetheless, they helped me grasp all of the inconsistencies, behaviors, and situations that made me feel wrong or obligated to accept them, despite their seeming irrationality. Their remarks were precise for my inner serenity and well-being. I fell into an intense inner dialogue, justifying or determining prior events by chance. I began to concentrate when I noticed the clear eyes of my buddies. My sense of events in my life was concurrent. I had so many questions for her. I noticed that most of our objectives were vague. My entire existence felt like a movie, but in 3D and at breakneck pace. I asked if I could watch it at a slower pace to savor and better balance certain interesting moments, but they said it wasn't worth it. It wasn't essential to study it because, in the end, I'd know exactly what it meant. Everyone was extremely polite. Nonetheless, I was overcome with nostalgia. I wonder if the people I knew were aware of where they were, because some left and others returned, visibly disturbed. I kept moving upward. These beings who were with me were really gentle and discreet. When I asked them questions and they replied with a simple smile, they were both unreadable and unfathomable. They always understood what I was thinking because the conversation was always psychic. Their responses were crucial, succinct, exact, and certain. They were peaceful individuals, without adornments and with a gentle sense of humor. Everything was understood without the need for further explanation. They directed me after they had finished detailing my cultural beginnings and pleasantly remarked to me, "None of this is significant." I paused for a moment, growing serene while ascending through a yellow, opaque, yet translucent duct. I witnessed beings symbolically removing their bodily traces now that they were no longer required. I walked through what appeared to be a train station. I witnessed folks who were welcomed, directed, and assisted in their departure from this world. I had known several beings for approximately 20 years and had never seen them again. I asked them what they were doing there, and they told me about the condition they had. I knew 2 persons in the physical realm who I didn't know but recognized years later, and I asked them what they were doing there. They claimed to be suffering from a terrible health ailment and had nearly died, but that they had recovered and were returning to their bodies. Nonetheless, there was a family member present who would exit his body in a definite manner. Some beings then appeared to accompany another friend who was too sick to return to his body. Another group ascended, and between this friend and his family, who had no idea his body had died, he was irritated, and I avoided talking to her. Just then, I noticed that the entities that were usually with me were laughing. Then I became unconscious, but when I awoke, I was in a form of refreshing sauna. I could tell my consciousness was still intact. I wondered whether there was any danger of not being able to return, because I felt I had passed a line. Nonetheless, I remembered my loved ones with affection, and when I expressed my sorrow, they replied that the decision will be decided later. I had a peculiar sense of curiosity. I felt a tender nostalgia, and was taken by the hand to embark on a lengthy, much faster journey in a mentholated experience. I heard cosmic sounds extremely clearly, comparable to those heard in electronic music, with clear echoes, deep cosmic echoes, almost metallic, surrounding us. Inside, I felt a cool breeze. There were lovely fragrances. Everything was warm, like a cool mist, with the impression of a solid foundation, on which we found ourselves. Then there was a big surprise. I saw a massive, gleaming golden form. A figure of light emerged from its center, considerably wider and stronger than the rest. It gave me the impression that I would be permanently blinded, but it kept getting closer. Every concern had vanished. Some sort of conversation had to have taken place with this amazing being, in the midst of a beautiful days in which this magnificent entity exuded supreme harmony and enveloped me with great grandeur. It was brimming with information, insight, and intelligence, and I was only a bystander. Finally, I noticed a slice or differential channel on the floor between its center and me. It informed me that I could jump over it, but that I would never be able to return. Then I was advised that I return without having any additional encounters. I found it very impossible to leave the core of the great fullness and overflowing satisfaction that I had perceived there. I was asked if I still wanted to return, with the understanding that several issues remained unsolved. I replied that I could return and asked if it was feasible to send me back. Then I heard a thunderous clicking sound that split me in two. I was finally able to escape the intense radiance. I was back in a misty plain, and it was refreshing. When I ran into my prior companions, I was taken aback and incredulous, wondering what had happened there. That's right, I had returned. Yes, I said. They were almost knocked down, and they believed this was practically impossible, and they would have to prepare me for far more extreme experiences. Then they told me that I would live a life that was equally torturous and successful until the designated moment. When I looked up, I was passing people who were ascending or descending. Surprisingly and unexpectedly, a figure of my younger brother, Carlos Alberto, materialized in front of me. I looked astonished, and he indicated that he would soon pass over. Various people arrived around him and greeted me, despite the fact that I had never met them. They made it clear that they were good friends with my brother and that they too would be leaving. I came to meet them many years later. In actuality, I had never seen them before. Then, one day, a tall young boy I'd never met appeared and greeted me pleasantly. I had no idea who he was. He claimed to have the same name as me and that we were related, but I couldn't help but notice his extremely familiar characteristics, particularly a striking family resemblance. Also, many years later, when I had the opportunity to return to one of my amazing uncle's homes, I met with the eldest boy, whom I had not seen since infancy, now the eldest and identical to the one I had seen during the experience, and, it would appear, a little bit later. When I returned to rejoin my old friends, they told me how far we had traveled from where we had first met. It was like a portal into the mist that ascends 3 or 4 steps, and they never stopped using it. "Well, let's go," they exclaimed. They responded that they were aware of the steps and would look around as they approached the entrance. When I poked my head around the entrance, everything around them was pitch black, and you couldn't see the bottom, but one of them told me I had to take a step. We smiled goodbye, and I began to fall at a deafening pace into the black, huge, and fathomless pit, which made me dizzy and tormented for some seconds, and I began to feel that what I thought was myself would very rapidly burst. I managed to mutter, "I can't stand this." And then, seemingly out of nowhere, I heard a voice say to me, "Yes, you can. Put up with it." Then I felt myself disappear into a wide void, clearer, in which I heard a peculiar and lovely tickling, like crystals and bells. When I tried to check how far away they were, it forced me to enter my physical body, where I sat down, violently leaving me rigid, with a big pain between the chest and the back that lasted for long. Then I was able to breathe more easily, lie down, and, I assume, sleep for several hours longer. Throughout the encounter, I felt like a voluminous body with a steady temperature emitting a luminous tone, like a sealed unit completely safe within my own light. I felt an infinity of warm tones, like a soothing soundscape. Bell sounds in clear and magnificent tones, as in rain or sun. A pleasant breeze carried a strong aniseed scent, and music crisscrossing me with a constant sound of mechanical triangles. I inhaled oxygenated air scented with orchids, jasmine, carnations, and soft roses, which transported me back to my childhood. What we try to be in worldly society is nothing more than an ethical convention and a diet of mathematical reasoning. This setting is required for fighting for every hue with the ultimate evolution of the spirit. The eminent cosmic rules exist alone for themselves. The totality, or God, if you prefer, is an absolute being who lives permanently within us. I am enlightened and satisfied that the grace that was given to me to go away from myself or remain with myself, guilt-free, has manifested itself in the soft pollen path of this earth. The being of light is the most exquisite center of harmony and joy, allowing us to relax in the comfort of our own forgetfulness. It's the origin of our final alliance, our mind's sensible and restricted analysis, as well as our terrestrial norms, cannot explain or articulate what you see close to the being of light. His wisdom and love are of such magnitude that the limitations of our minds will not allow us to adequately record or explain the experience after we return. The constraints cannot define the vastness. Nonetheless, when we get there, we will understand. We sense the presence of the being of light with the light of our own alive consciousness, state celebration, revelation, gladness, glory, and more for all eternity.
What a profound exploration of the boundaries between life and the beyond. Our journey today on Fascinating Stories has been nothing short of revelatory, questioning the essence of existence, life, and what might be waiting for us on the other side. These stories are not just tales. They're experiences that challenge our perceptions and open our minds to the infinite possibilities of the universe. If today's story struck a chord with you, or if you've had similar experiences, please share them with our community in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss an episode. Until next time, I'm Mike, leaving you with the thought that perhaps our world is just a speck in the vast tapestry of the universe. Farewell, and keep pondering the fascinating.